And while this increased sensitivity may make you feel different from those around you, it is not meant to isolate you from purpose. It is meant to prepare you for it. You are being equipped with the ability to navigate life with greater awareness, to make decisions that are rooted in understanding rather than impulse. What once felt like confusion is gradually being replaced with a deeper sense of clarity, even if you cannot yet fully explain it. Difference between genuine connection and superficial interaction. This can be difficult because it may lead you to create distance where you once felt closeness. But this distance is not about rejection. It is about alignment. You are learning to protect your peace and your purpose with greater intention. Your decision-making process also begins to change. Instead of reacting impulsively or relying solely on logic, you start to listen inwardly. There's a pause that develops, a moment where you check what you feel before you move forward. This does not mean you always have immediate clarity, but it does mean you are becoming more intentional. You're no longer driven by urgency alone, but by discernment. This awakening also brings a deeper connection to truth. You begin to value honesty in a way that goes beyond surface-level communication. You seek authenticity both in yourself and in others. This can lead to moments of discomfort because truth is not always easy to face. It may challenge your assumptions, confront your habits, and push you out of your comfort zone. But it also brings clarity, and with clarity comes direction. There's a refining happening within your thoughts as well. You become more aware of what you allow into your mind, more selective about the influences you entertain. Negative patterns that once dominated your thinking begin to lose their hold as you consciously choose what aligns with your growth. This mental discipline is part of the sharpening process, strengthening your ability to remain focused and grounded. There comes a point in your journey where you begin to notice things you once overlooked, where your awareness sharpens in a way that feels almost unfamiliar. It is as if your inner senses are being awakened, and suddenly you can discern the difference between what is right for you and what only appears to be right. Situations that once seemed harmless now carry a weight you can feel. Conversations that once flowed easily now reveal underlying intentions, and choices that once felt simple now require deeper consideration. This is not overthinking. This is the beginning of spiritual sensitivity taking root within you. This heightened awareness does not always feel comfortable. In fact, it can feel overwhelming because you are no longer able to move through life unconsciously. You begin to pick up on subtle shifts in energy, on inconsistencies in words and actions, on the quiet signals that reveal truth beneath the surface. What once passed by unnoticed now demands your attention. And with this awareness comes responsibility. You can no longer pretend you do not see what has been revealed to you. There's also a stronger sense of conviction that begins to develop within you. It is no longer easy to ignore what you know is not aligned with your values or your calling. Even small compromises begin to feel significant. The things you once justified now bring a sense of unease. This is not meant to burden you, but to guide you. It is a form of internal correction that keeps you aligned with a higher standard, one that is shaping you for what is ahead. As this sensitivity grows, your relationships may begin to shift. You start to recognize who truly supports your growth and who subtly pulls you away from it. You notice this season of isolation is also where strength is quietly developed. Not the kind of strength that is loud or visible, but the kind that allows you to stand firm even when no one is watching. You learn to be consistent without applause, to remain faithful without recognition. This builds a resilience that cannot be easily shaken because it is not dependent on external circumstances. And even though it may feel like you are being set aside, you are actually being set apart. There is a distinction being formed, a preparation that is not meant for public display. What is being built in this hidden place carries a depth that cannot be produced in crowded environments. Every moment of solitude is adding something to you, shaping your character, strengthening your spirit, aligning you with a purpose that requires more than surface-level readiness. Isolation also strips away the need for constant validation. When you're no longer surrounded by voices affirming or influencing you, you are forced to develop an internal foundation. You begin to understand who you are without the opinions of others shaping your identity. This process is not instant. It takes time, and it requires patience. There may be moments where you question your worth, where the silence feels heavy, where the absence of external support feels like weakness. But in reality, something stronger is being built within you. There is also a deepening of your connection with God in this season. Without the distractions that once divided your attention, you begin to hear more clearly, not always through audible words, but through a sense of direction, a quiet conviction, an inner knowing that guides you. This kind of communication is subtle, but it is powerful. It teaches you to listen beyond the surface, to trust beyond what is immediately visible. You may notice that your perspective begins to change as well. Things you once chased no longer hold the same importance. You start to value stillness, clarity, and purpose in a way you did not before. Your priorities shift, and with that shift comes a different approach to how you spend your time and energy. You become more intentional, more selective, more aware of what you allow into your life. There's a kind of isolation that is not meant to harm you, but to shape you. It does not come with loud announcements or clear explanations, but you begin to notice it in the subtle shifts of your life. The invitations become fewer, the conversations become shorter, the desire to be constantly surrounded by others starts to fade. It is not that you suddenly dislike people, but something within you begins to crave depth over noise, purpose over distraction. This is not loneliness in the way the world defines it. This is intentional separation, a drawing away so that something deeper can be formed within you. At first, this isolation can feel uncomfortable because it removes the familiar rhythms you were used to. The constant activity, the voices, the interactions that once filled your time are no longer present in the same way. You may find yourself sitting in quiet spaces more often, facing thoughts and emotions you were able to avoid before. This can feel overwhelming because it requires you to confront yourself without distraction. But this confrontation is not meant to break you. It is meant to reveal you. In this hidden place, God begins to work on areas of your life that could not be addressed in the noise. Patterns you never noticed start to become clear. Habits that once seemed harmless begin to show their impact. You start to recognize the difference between what is authentic and what was simply learned behavior shaped by your environment. This awareness can be uncomfortable because it challenges the image you had of yourself, but it is also the beginning of real transformation. There's a kind of isolation that is not meant to harm you, but to shape you. It does not come with loud announcements or clear explanations, but you begin to notice it in the subtle shifts of your life. The invitations become fewer, the conversations become shorter, the desire to be constantly surrounded by others starts to fade. It is not that you suddenly dislike people, but something within you begins to crave depth over noise, purpose over distraction. This is not loneliness in the way the world defines it. This is intentional separation, a drawing away so that something deeper can be formed within you. At first, this isolation can feel uncomfortable because it removes the familiar rhythms you were used to. The constant activity, the voices, the interactions that once filled your time are no longer present in the same way. You may find yourself sitting in quiet spaces more often, facing thoughts and emotions you were able to avoid before. This can feel overwhelming because it requires you to confront yourself without distraction. But this confrontation is not meant to break you. It is meant to reveal you. In this hidden place, God begins to work on areas of your life that could not be addressed in the noise. Patterns you never noticed start to become clear. Habits that once seemed harmless begin to show their impact. You start to recognize the difference between what is authentic and what was simply learned behavior shaped by your environment. This awareness can be uncomfortable because it challenges the image you had of yourself, but it is also the beginning of real transformation. And what once seemed distant now feels deeply important. This is not randomness, it is recalibration. God is adjusting your focus, drawing your attention toward what aligns with your calling and away from what no longer serves it. You may also experience a sense of disconnection from environments that used to feel like home. Conversations may feel shallow, interactions may feel forced, and you may find yourself withdrawing without fully understanding why. It can feel isolating, as though you no longer fit where you once belonged. But this discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that you are evolving beyond your previous surroundings. In this season, clarity does not always come immediately. You may not have a clear vision of where you are going, only a strong awareness that you cannot stay where you are. This uncertainty can be unsettling because it removes the sense of control you once had. You are learning to move without a full map, to trust the direction without needing every detail. And this requires a different kind of faith, one that is not dependent on visible outcomes. There's also a deep refining happening within your character. The restlessness is not just pushing you outward, it is shaping you inward. It is teaching you to listen more closely, to discern more carefully, to become more intentional with your choices. You're becoming more aware of what aligns with your purpose and what distracts from it. This awareness may bring moments of discomfort, but it also brings a deeper sense of direction. And even though this season can feel unsettling, there's a quiet strength forming beneath it all. You're learning to sit with the unknown without rushing to escape it. You are developing the capacity to endure transition without losing your sense of identity. What feels like instability on the surface is actually the early stage of something being firmly established within you. There comes a point where what once satisfied you no longer feels enough, where the routines you follow begin to feel empty, and the places that once brought comfort start to feel unfamiliar. It is not because those things have suddenly lost all value, but because something within you is shifting. A deeper awareness begins to rise, and with it comes a restlessness that cannot be ignored. It is a quiet but persistent signal that you are outgrowing the space you are in, that your spirit is stretching beyond what your current life can contain. This restlessness can feel confusing at first. You may question your gratitude, wondering why you feel unsettled despite having things that once made you happy. You may even try to force yourself back into contentment, telling yourself to be satisfied, to not want more, to stay where it is safe and familiar. But the more you try to suppress it, the stronger it becomes. Because this feeling is not rooted in dissatisfaction alone, it is rooted in transformation. It is the evidence that growth has begun, and growth refuses to stay confined. There's a tension that comes with this process, a pull between what you have known and what you sense is ahead. Part of you wants to hold on to the comfort of familiarity, while another part is urging you to move forward into something undefined. This internal conflict can make you feel unstable, like you're caught between two versions of yourself. And in many ways, you are. The person you have been is gradually making way for the person you are becoming. As this shift continues, you begin to notice changes in your desires. Things that once excited you lose their appeal, and new interests begin to emerge without clear explanation. Your priorities start to realign. What once felt urgent now feels insignificant. Navigate things on your own. But this is where your reliance begins to shift. Instead of depending on human presence for stability, you are being drawn into a deeper dependence on God. What once came from others is now being cultivated within you. There's also a refining of your discernment in this process. You begin to see relationships more clearly, not through emotion alone, but through alignment and purpose. You recognize where there was imbalance, where you gave more than you received, where your energy was being drained rather than strengthened. This clarity can be difficult because it changes how you view people you once held close, but it is necessary for growth. The pain of separation is real, and it should not be dismissed or minimized. It is natural to grieve what is changing, to feel the weight of what is being lost. But within that grief, there's also a quiet understanding forming, a realization that what is leaving is making space for what is meant to come. The emptiness you feel is not permanent. It is transitional. It is the clearing of ground before something new is built. And while it may seem like everything familiar is slipping away, there is a deeper stability being formed within you. You're learning to stand without leaning too heavily on what is temporary. You are discovering a strength that does not depend on constant companionship or external affirmation. What feels like loss on the surface is, in reality, a repositioning that is aligning you with something greater than what you're leaving behind. There are seasons when people begin to exit your life in ways that feel sudden and unexplainable. Connections that once felt secure start to weaken. Conversations lose their depth, and the bond you once shared no longer carries the same presence. It can feel confusing, even painful, because you search for a reason, something you said or did, some moment that caused the shift. But often, the truth is not rooted in conflict or failure. It is rooted in divine movement. God begins to remove what no longer aligns with where He is taking you. And this process rarely comes with clear explanations. This kind of separation cuts deeper because it touches the places where you felt known and understood. You remember the laughter, the support, the shared moments that once felt permanent. And now, there is distance where there was once closeness. It creates a tension within you, a desire to hold on, to fix what is slipping away. But what you are experiencing is not something you're meant to repair. It is something you are meant to release. Because not every connection is designed to survive every season of your life. There's a protection hidden within this loss. God sees what you cannot see, understands what you have not yet realized. Some people are assigned to a chapter of your life, not the entire story. And when that chapter ends, their presence begins to fade. Not because they are bad, not because you are wrong, but because their role has been fulfilled. Holding on beyond that point can create resistance against the very path you are meant to walk. As the separation unfolds, you may feel a sense of isolation, as if the circle around you is shrinking. People you once leaned on are no longer there in the same way, and the absence becomes noticeable. It can feel like you are being stripped of support, left to. You may notice that during this time, distractions lose their appeal. Conversations that once entertained you now feel shallow. Environments that once energized you now feel draining. It is as if your spirit is being recalibrated, tuned to a different frequency that no longer aligns with the noise around you. This can make you feel out of place, even among familiar people, but this discomfort is not a sign of disconnection from purpose. It is a sign of movement toward it. The silence also teaches patience in a way that nothing else can. It stretches your ability to wait without losing hope, to remain steady without immediate results. It challenges the urgency within you, the desire to rush into answers, to force clarity where there is none yet. And in doing so, it builds a resilience that cannot be shaken by delays or uncertainties. You begin to understand that timing is not something you control, but something you trust. And while it may feel like nothing is happening, there's a deep, unseen work taking place. Foundations are being laid beneath the surface. Structures are being formed in places you cannot yet see. What feels like stillness is actually preparation, precise and intentional. Every moment of quiet is carrying weight, shaping you in ways that noise never could. There's a kind of silence that does not come from emptiness, but from divine intention. It is the silence that settles in when God begins to move in ways that are too deep for noise, too sacred for distraction. You find yourself in a place where the usual confirmations are gone, where the reassurance you once depended on no longer comes the same way. The prayers you used to speak with confidence now feel like they're suspended in still air, and the response you expected is replaced by quiet. This silence can feel unsettling because it forces you to confront what your faith is truly built on. It strips away the need for constant signs and invites you into a deeper trust that does not rely on immediate feedback. In this silence, your identity begins to shift. You're no longer sustained by emotional highs or external validation, but by something far more rooted and enduring. God is teaching you to walk without needing to see every step ahead, to believe without needing constant reassurance. The silence is not a punishment. It is a process of strengthening. It is where your dependence on visible outcomes begins to fade, and your connection to the unseen becomes stronger. What once felt necessary now feels distant, and what once felt distant begins to draw near in a different, quieter way. There's also a refining happening within you. The silence exposes what has been hidden beneath the surface. It brings your fears, your doubts, your insecurities into the light, not to shame you, but to transform you. You begin to see where your trust has been divided, where your focus has been misplaced, where your faith has been conditional. And as uncomfortable as this revelation may be, it is essential. Because before God releases what He has for you, He prepares your inner world to sustain it. God is not preparing to bless the version of you that is comfortable, distracted, and dependent on external validation. He is preparing to bless the version of you that has been refined through fire, strengthened through silence, and shaped through surrender. The blessing that is coming is not small. It is not temporary. It is not surface level. It is something that will require a different level of faith, a deeper level of character, and a stronger connection with Him. This is why the process feels so intense. Because what God is about to do in your life cannot be sustained by who you used to be. So He is changing you before He changes your circumstances. He is preparing your spirit before He releases the promise. And here is what you must understand. Just because you cannot see it does not mean it is not happening. Just because you cannot feel it does not mean God is not moving. There are things shifting in the spiritual realm that you cannot yet perceive. Doors are being aligned. Paths are being cleared. Opportunities are being orchestrated. And at the right moment, everything will come together in a way that only God could have done. So do not fear the isolation. Do not resist the discomfort. Do not misinterpret the silence. These are not signs that something is wrong. These are signs that something is about to change in a way you cannot yet fully comprehend. You're not being forgotten. You're being prepared. You're not being delayed. You're being positioned. You're not being broken. You're being built. And when the blessing comes, when the doors open, when the shift finally manifests in your physical reality, you will look back at this season and realize that every moment of confusion, every tear, every lonely night, every unanswered prayer was part of a divine process that was leading you exactly where you needed to be. Another powerful sign is increased spiritual sensitivity. You begin to discern things you never noticed before. You feel conviction more strongly. You become aware of what aligns with God and what doesn't. Your spirit becomes sharper, more alert. And this can feel overwhelming because you start seeing the world differently. But this is a gift. God is tuning your spirit so you can carry what He is about to release into your life. And then there is the warfare, the sudden, unexpected challenges, the emotional battles, the doubts that try to creep in, the resistance that seems to rise out of nowhere. And it confuses you because you think, if God is about to bless me, why is it getting harder? But understand this, resistance often increases when breakthrough is near. The enemy does not attack what is stagnant. He attacks what is about to move. And the intensity of the battle is often an indicator of the magnitude of the blessing. You may also find yourself questioning everything, your purpose, your direction, even your identity. And this feels unsettling because it shakes the foundation of who you thought you were. But sometimes God has to dismantle your old identity to reveal your true one. Because the person you were cannot carry the calling you are stepping into. So He allows the questions, not to confuse you, but to refine you. And in the middle of all of this, there's a quiet strength forming within you. You're not reacting the same way you used to. Things that once broke, you no longer have the same power. You are becoming more resilient, more grounded, more aware. And you may not even realize it, but you are changing, slowly, deeply, permanently. Another sign is the deep internal discomfort you cannot escape. You feel restless even in places where you used to feel comfortable. You outgrow environments without trying. Things that once made you happy now leave you feeling empty. This is not confusion. This is transformation. God is stretching your spirit beyond what your current surroundings can contain. And stretching never feels good. It feels like pressure. It feels like tension. But without it, growth would never happen. Then comes the season of silence. Prayers feel like they are hitting the ceiling. You open your heart to God, and instead of immediate answers, you are met with stillness. And this is where many people give up. But silence is not absence. Silence is often where God does his deepest work. Because when God removes the noise, you begin to hear him differently. Not through emotions, not through external validation, but through a deeper, quieter knowing. Faith matures in silence. Trust is built when you keep walking even when you cannot hear his voice clearly. You may also notice that you're being pulled into isolation, not loneliness, but intentional separation. You find yourself withdrawing from crowds, from distractions, from things that once consumed your time. And people may not understand it. They may say you've changed, that you become distant. But what they don't see is that God is calling you into a place where he can speak to you without interruption. Every great calling in Scripture was preceded by a season of isolation. Because before God uses you publicly, he prepares you privately. There are moments in life when heaven goes quiet, when the noise fades, when the things that once excited you no longer satisfy you, and you begin to feel a stirring you cannot explain. It is not depression. It is not confusion. It is not emptiness for the sake of emptiness. It is divine preparation. It is the hand of God gently, yet firmly, pulling you out of what was and positioning you for what is about to be. And many people misunderstand this season because it does not look like blessing. It feels like loss. It feels like isolation. It feels like everything is being stripped away. But what you are experiencing is not abandonment. It is alignment. God is about to bless you in a way that will not make sense to people who only understand surface-level faith. This is a calling few understand because it requires you to walk through seasons that do not match your prayers at first glance. You asked for elevation, but instead you got separation. You asked for favor, but instead you faced rejection. You asked for clarity, but instead you were led into silence. And yet, hidden within all of this is a divine strategy. God is not delaying you. He's developing you. One of the first signs that God is about to bless you big is that he begins to remove people from your life without explanation. Relationships you thought were permanent begin to shift. Conversations become distant. Connections lose their depth. And you sit there wondering, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, sometimes you did nothing wrong. Sometimes God is protecting the next version of you from the environment of the current one. Not everyone who walked with you in your last season is meant to walk with you into your next. And the pain of separation is often the price of elevation.